Right. Yeah, it's fine. Green was back in.
No.
The one's printed in green. Like a different order or something.
Here it comes. Oh, you got the right
You got
one.
the- You got the right one. So you're okay. I think she's okay too. Yeah, it's
Okay.
just the first two.
Nina, you want one?
I've got this
Which one? Is it green
This is
or
extra.
black?
blue one.
That's
the
the
one.
green one.
All right, very good.
So you got the right one. so
That
you
way,
can also
everybody's
see.
on the same
Do
page.
you have the right one? You don't have green, do you?
Yeah.
Okay. good.
Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Heavy.
Let's see. What, your first one is "Oh Come All You Faithful"?
Yeah. No, wait, that's the second one. The first one will come.
Oh, Come, Come Emmanuel. Do you want to do that one? It's not as well known.
Whichever you want.
Let's do "Oh Come All You Faithful."
You're the orchestra leader, Swami.
That's right.
That's always, yeah.
There's so many versions, you know, it's hard to keep them all straight. All right, let's see, I wonder if we need to put this down a step or two. Down a step, right? Is that too loud?
Yeah, the neighbors.
Oh, they're rock and rollers. I don't think they'll.
Oh, okay. I see a lot of speakers.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come, C shepherds or C how? What's your third verse? Oh, I don't have those words.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's go on to the next one. What's your next?
The next one on this list is the first
First Noel.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Angel did say.
Here,
I don't know that either.
I have the music, but I don't have the words so that I can help you sing. Well, that would be very difficult to read off of that and play at the same time. So you guys are gonna have to sing louder, that's all.
Yeah, you guys need to.
I think I could probably make it through the first verse without the words. But after that, I'll probably be- Oh, you have angels we have heard on high there?
Mhm.
Is that the next one? Let's do that then.
What page is it on?
Angels we have heard on high, I thought you said it was on the same page.
No,
No?
it's further down.
Okay. What,
Angels, I'm looking, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, it's on page 7, at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. You're sitting at the bottom.
all right, let's do angels we have heard on high. Do you want it even a little lower?
Yes.
This one's pretty long right now. Angels we have heard on high, singing sweetly o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? What was unfolding green, which inspired your song? In excelsis Deo, in excelsis Deo. Unto Bethlehem sing, next to his birth the angels sing. The mother and then the King, Christ the Lord, the newborn King. In excelsis Deo. Let's see. Let me just jump around. Away in a manger. Somebody find that and direct everybody.
Oh, yeah, it's on page 3.
Find yourself here, stop.
There you
Better,
go.
yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see.
Sweet songs.
Hmm?
Such sweet songs they are.
Yeah. How about the little town of Bethlehem?
Seven.
Lucky seven.
Page 7.
Okay. I'll have the first one.
I'm not used to this key. All right. Do the best we can. It's almost 2 though, isn't it? Let's see. Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see love. Oh, that we can see the silence clouds go by. Yet in thy dusky shadow, hopes and for Christ is Lord of the mortal Let's do Silent Night, and then we do at least one song for Holy Mother. There you go.
AJ,
Did you find it?
8.
Let's see, this one is up. Let's see.
Yep. You like that one.
Jesus, Lord of the All right, now we should do Saturday, maybe Saturday. May from and protect us. May He guide us and give us strength and right understanding. May love and harmony be with us all. Oh, peace, peace, peace. So our topic is the magic of Maya. Since I use the analogy that Maya is like a magic show, I thought I'd examine it a little more closely. So first we'll ask, what is Maya? And it actually, we normally say it's the power of Brahman to manifest an apparent universe. And this comes from the Proto-Indo-European root of NS. And this root is also the root word for our English words maternal, matrix, material, and matter. So that all fits because basically we think of the manifest universe as the material universe, the material manifestation. Now, the word magic has two meanings, has many meanings, but the two common ones that you find first are like going to a magic show, and which is the analogy that I use, but it also is the magic that you would find in Harry Potter with the witches and warlocks performing magic. And it's interesting, both these things have some interesting comparisons and analogies. So the word magic, no matter how you're going to use it, it has one basic origin. It comes from magos, which originally was one of the members of a learned priestly class borrowed from an old Persian word, magush, which is probably again from a Proto-Indo-European root, M-A-G-H, which meant to have power. So a priestly class obviously would have some power. And this then morphed into the Greek word magike, which meant the power of apparently influencing events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. Now this root word, M-A-G-H, is Proto-European root, has the basic meaning of to be able or to have power to do. And it's interesting that this has become, this is the root word for our words like machine and mechanic and magic as well. It also is the root word for the Sanskrit word mahan, meaning great or to be able. So the root word for Maya means to be, and the root word for magic is to be able. So it's kind of interesting that there's a similarity there. So the common meaning today is the magician that does tricks to make things appear or disappear. They're performed for entertainment. And so it refers to the art of being able to perform tricks and illusions that entertain people. But it also refers to the more ancient type of magic, which had to do with the art of influencing events or predicting events or producing marvels using natural hidden forces. So let's pretend that Maya is our cosmic magic show. Suppose we go to a regular magic show. We have a couple in Las Vegas, I believe. So we're going to a Las Vegas magic show, and there's this grand theater, the curtains of velvet rise, and the lights dim, and the audience is great anticipation. And the magician or a couple of magicians or magicians and assistants come out, and suddenly they produce a dove out of thin air, out of what appears to be an empty hat. And they make a coin vanish into thin air, or they'll make a person seem to levitate up into the just the visible air. So you might ask yourself, is this real? Well, most of us know that this is some sort of trick, that it's some sort of an illusion, that it's not really real. Now, this is really the way Maya works as well. Now, the magician here is not a person, it's the power of cosmic illusion. It's the cosmic power of Maya that is the magician. And the stage is the whole universe, the universe itself, are all of the props that she needs. The props are the mountains, the rivers, the people, the animals, the plants, and everything that goes along with them. And we are the audience, and we sit spellbound by this convincing show. It seems very solid and very real. It seems like a very good show, and we're a very attentive audience. And that's part of our problem, is that we're too attentive to this show. It's a stage of illusion. Now, a magician, his stage or her stage would be lights, smoke, mirrors, props. Everything's arranged to direct our attention outward and away from the truth. In the same way, Maya presents this grand stage of illusion, this stage of existence, and the world dazzles us with its colors and its dramas and its endless variety. But of course, as Vedanta practitioners, we are asked to look closer and to think, well, probably that magician's hat was never truly empty. There was just a dove hiding in there somewhere. And in the world of Maya, if we look really closely, we were never truly separated into this vast array of multiplicity, but we were always one with Brahman. That's what is the true fact hiding behind this magic show. What seems permanent is really fleeting, and what seems solid is only a projection upon the screen of consciousness. Now let's look at some core principles of doing a magic trick. What are some of the things that a magician has to focus on? Well, first of all, he has to direct our attention away from what he's doing. He needs to hide some things. And so he needs to guide our focus away from what his left hand is doing when his right hand is doing some flourishing thing up here, for example. Now, Maya does exactly the same thing. Maya has created our sense organs to do that for us. Our sense organs direct everything out, and we see all this stuff. We hear things, we feel things, we smell things. All of our attention is directed outward rather than inward, where our pure consciousness is. So we're genetically programmed, of course, for survival, not for self-realization. And survival is where our sense organs direct our attention. We need to be able to survive in this world. We've all descended from people that have survived. So that's the way our programming works. And so in order to survive, our senses are directed outward. And so this is why we don't have the natural tendency of directing our attention inward where it needs to be for spiritual growth. Now, magicians will use visual, auditory, and emotional redirections. And these are all things that can distract us from our meditation practice. So we try to cut out distracting visual information. We try to cut out distracting auditory information. And if we're emotionally upset, we know it's going to be difficult to sit and meditate that day. So we try to get those things out of our mind. So this is why the meditation techniques focus on those kinds of things, to reduce those kinds of inputs. Now there's something called inattentional blindness that psychologists have figured out. This is a phenomenon that when your attention is focused on a task, it causes you to overlook other things, such as unexpected objects in your visual field. And there have been very interesting psychological experiments where the famous one where they have two people tossing a ball and you're directed to count how many times the ball is transferred from one person to the other. And during that, a man in a gorilla suit walks in the back, and almost nobody sees it. Nobody notices this. So the magician uses this trick as well. So again, we're focused on survival in this world, and so we tend to miss a lot of clues that this world is really one. And if you look at this quantum world, the subatomic particles, if you think of this world as an actual, real, physical world, it seems like magic, because we're told that the subatomic particles are in one state, and then they just magically disappear from that state and appear in another state somewhere else. And it seems like magic. Now, if you think of it as an apparent universe, there's no problem at all. You'd expect it to be able to appear and disappear wherever it wants to. So this world of appearance will disappear if we close the doors of our senses. It disappears in deep sleep. It disappears in samadhi. So this world of appearance will disappear if we do one of those three things. So psychological manipulation. Magicians also exploit many cognitive biases and expectations that they have learned they can manipulate. They use suggestion, timing, framing to influence how the audience perceives events. And again, our minds and our senses are genetically programmed to see things in certain perspectives. And these are also highly influenced by the society and the culture that we have grown up in. We interpret things according to cultural norms and society expectations. So now Maya does not create something out of nothing. Like the magician, it manipulates our perception so that we don't see the oneness behind it. So the world is not utterly false. It is what we call mithya in Sanskrit, dependent on reality. It borrows its existence from Brahman. Brahman and Maya are inseparable. Shakti and Shiva are inseparable. And so the world is not utterly false. It's just that our perception of it is a perception of a universe that's not permanent. We see the impermanent show going on, and we don't see the background stage which it is playing. So just as the magician borrows from plausibility that the audience is expecting to see on stage with a collection of props and special effects, Maya depends on our perception of the universe that our minds have been programmed to see. So part of our spiritual practice, and something that I tend to focus on in our talks, is how do we train ourselves to notice the oneness behind the multiplicity, whether it's through music or art or literature or drama or fairy tales or the way we interact with people. We want to train ourselves to notice the oneness behind all things. You know, there's an interesting incident about how people perceive things. When we see an airplane, we immediately think, oh, a vehicle of transportation through the air. When a primitive tribe saw this during World War II, where a plane would be bringing food and supplies to some of the local people and some of the troops that were on the island, they thought it was miraculous. And they started building replicas of the planes and offering prayers and worships and rituals to these idols that they had built, hoping that they would bring more supplies and food and things for them. And so we are definitely programmed to see things in ways that we are used to. Again, as we mentioned earlier, our brains tend to focus on one thing at a time, and we fail to notice changes in the visual scenes if those changes coincide with distractions or visual interruptions. So the magicians will use that phenomenon to make subtle switches during moments of misdirection when the observer's attention is diverted. Another interesting fact about our brains is it tends to see wholes. It tends to see the gestalt of a situation. And we tend to like closure and continuity. Just like you have a little visual blind spot in your eye, but you're brain just fills in the missing information. Similarly, in other situations, we tend to fill in missing information. And so magicians design their apparatuses and their movements that encourage our brains to fill in missing information, thus creating the illusion that they want. So you might see a person one moment and not see them the next in some situation because they've constructed the stage in such a way that you're filling in missing information that causes you to see this illusion. So it's the cleverly designed props, hidden compartments, mirrors, and trap doors that deceive our senses and create what seem like impossible scenarios. And again, quantum mechanics seems to be doing the same thing. And the physicists are struggling now. Are there hidden dimensions somewhere that we're missing where these things can really take place? So a lot of it is also the theatrical craftsmanship, the lighting, the sound, the costumes, the stage design, the strategic shadows, and the strategic spotlights that allow you to see what you're supposed to see and not allow you to see what you're not supposed to see. And Mother Nature is the same way. We see a certain part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We hear only a part of the auditory spectrum. Our senses spotlight certain things in our surroundings, and we miss entirely the rest of it. So Mother Nature is putting on a grand show, and she allows us to see only certain things that she wants us to see. So what makes a magic show delightful is not the trick itself, but the audience's reactions. You know, the gasp and wonder, laughter, disbelief, enchantment. And in the same way, Maya captivates us with emotional reactions, our desires and our attachments. We marvel at the beauty and we recoil from the horrors and the suffering, and we chase after fleeting joys. So Vedanta points out that this engagement is precisely what binds us. As long as we remain absorbed in the spectacle, we cannot see the truth behind it. The magician thrives on our attention, and the illusion persists because we participate in it. We like it. We kind of like to be fooled. We like the magic show. So we have to ask ourselves, are we always going to continue to be a passive spectator, or are we going to learn the magician's tricks? Exactly how is this magic show going on? Now, another thing that magicians use is storytelling and audience participation. They'll ask somebody, "Hey, you in the yellow sweater, you come up here," and then they'll do some trick involving this audience member. And so it's very engaging to have a supposedly independent person out there joining the show. And Maya does the same thing. We're all participants in Maya. We've all been assigned various roles in this drama. And the story is very engaging. And it's very personal. It's everything's created with names and forms. Those are the backbone of Maya. Maya is created out of names and forms. And so we identify all these things, and some of them we think of as ours, and some of them we think of as others. But everything's got a name and some sort of personal identification to it. And Maya has programmed us to be emotional creatures, to have likes and dislikes. Every magic show then ends, and you finally see the outcome. The person that was supposedly cut in half comes back to wholeness again, or the person that's levitated comes back down to the ground, or the missing coin is discovered inside somebody's pocket. And so the audience is then delighted in the skillful deception, and finally we realize that it was all just an apparent show. And this is what happens when we finally wake up to this show of Maya, that it's really just an appearance in Maya. It's a delightful show, and it becomes even more delightful when we wake up to it and we realize that it is really just a performance upon the stage of consciousness, the infinite consciousness. The show will continue, but we will be free from the delusion that it is real and that we'll know that it's only a show. So Maya is this cosmic show, this cosmic magic show. It's enchanting, it's bewildering, and it's ultimately pointing us back to the reality that lies beyond appearances. The wonder will remain, but the bondage dissolves when we realize that this is the cosmic show. Now let's turn to the other kind of magic, that of the witches and the warlocks, that of the Harry Potter or the Wizard of Oz. This kind of magic, it's a way of seeing and shaping the world, trying to work with and manipulate the energies within nature for the survival in this world. Now, of course, just like there was in the Wizard of Oz and Harry Potter, there are good witches and bad witches. And what makes one a good witch or a bad witch? Well, good witches work to help everyone to survive, to promote healing, to manipulate the forces of nature to bring about good crops, healthy progeny, pleasant weather, cure diseases, and that kind of thing. Bad witches work to benefit one person over another, to bring harm to some, to bring benefit to others. Usually the benefit is for themselves or somebody that's paid them to do something. You know, there's a Gilbert and Sullivan plot called The Sorcerer, where the sorcerer is asked to provide a love potion, and he's telling them about all the different things that he can do, and he says he has penny curses that are very popular. He has penny blessings, but they're not so popular. Now, this is all of what we might call part of pagan religions. And it is mostly concerned with living happily with nature. It's not as concerned with an afterlife. There's some aspects of that, but it's not as concerned. Now, Hinduism is sometimes criticized for being too otherworldly. But really, traditional Hinduism teaches to respect nature, to set aside part of the environment for other creatures, for other parts of nature. They're supposed to care for nature. And this becomes then part of our spiritual practices. So we can learn from the good practices of of paganism, because it does emphasize this other aspect which sometimes people think is ignored in Hinduism. And you will find that it has a lot of similar belief systems built into it. So it tends to emphasize the more practical worldly aspect. And we must remember that in the early stages of our existence in this world, that occupied most of our attention. How are we going to survive until tomorrow? How are we going to survive long enough to have progeny? So it was all about survival in a very brutal world of nature. And yet nature was also nurturing. And so how to cultivate the nurturing side of nature and somehow control the more destructive side of nature. So people learn to find the right herbs for healing, the right crystals for protection, to tune into the cycles of nature, cycles of the moon, cycles of the seasons, for example. Looking at the plants and animals around them to find out what they could learn from them. What things are the animals eating? What kind of plants might be good for us, and so forth. The practice of astrology was another attempt at trying to figure out what was going to be happening and what the best course of action would be in the present. Other types of divination were also used to try to reveal possible events. And so you still see these widely today by psychics and so forth, and channelers. They'll use tarot cards or things of that nature, pendulums, or palm reading, all sorts of things that might be included in that kind of divination. Now, there are principles of this type of magic with many parallels to Vedantic thinking. The first principle is one called mentalism, which is that the universe is mind, and the mind is the universe. The universe itself is a great living mind, and our thoughts are not separate from the world around us. And so intention in our practice is crucial. So for a witch doing a spell, it's important for them to focus, not just go through the motions, but to focus on the intention of the spell and to infuse the words and the actions with clear thought and energy. Now, we should do that in our spiritual practice when we do a puja or arati or sit down to meditate or do japam. We should be clear about our intention. What is our goal? What is the meaning of the words that we're using? And we should infuse those words with intense, concentrated power. And certainly, this idea that the universe is mind and the mind is universe fits right in with the idea that everything is consciousness. Consciousness is the ground of existence, and the whole universe is made of consciousness. The second principle is the principle of correspondence, which we refer to frequently in our talks. As above, so below. As within, so without. Everything is connected. What is happening inside of us is reflected outside, and what's reflected outside is reflecting inside. And astrology is a good example of that. You look up in the heavens and you try to figure out why things look the way they do in the sky, and does that reflect something that's happening in here or in the earthly plane? So this correspondence is seen as a way to bridge the here and now, our physical universe, and that which is beyond, the spirit world. And for paganism, that would probably be like ancestor spirits and that type of thing, or maybe angels and devas, that kind of a type of spirit. But for us, of course, it also resonates with our highest aspiration of realizing our oneness with Brahman. Now, since there's this correspondence, in paganism, they would use crystals, herbs, color symbolism that resonate with the energy of the particular archetype of a deity type of energy or spirit guide that they're trying to invoke in order for their connection to nature to be successful. And we do the same things. And I would encourage you to do more of that. For example, we decorate with flowers, but it would be even more beneficial, I think, if we remember to use red for the mother images, white for the guru and for Shiva, and that side of things. So each deity has a particular color that they like. Saraswati is kind of an exception to the mother images. She likes white. Ganesha likes red. So we can try to do more of that. Also, in some traditions, religious traditions, they would use candles with specific colors for different celebrations. We're kind of locked into electronic candles, so we don't have quite that freedom. But for example, in Hollywood, we have green votive lights and red votive lights and gold votive lights and clear votive light that we change depending on what's going on in the season or the celebration. Also, there's a whole science of scents, which would involve incense. So if you're a big student of incense, you might know that certain fragrances are inducive to certain kinds of energies. One of the professors at USC, that was his dissertation, his PhD dissertation, was on the use of incense in spiritual rituals. Now, the next principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. And this, of course, is exactly what Maya is. Maya is the changing aspect, which we see against the changeless aspect of Brahman. And so in paganism, it's the crystals, the mantras, the incantations that vibrate with certain energies. And in our tradition, again, it would be the mantras, the yantras, and the mandalas that vibrate with certain energies. Also, the murti itself vibrates with a certain energy. And of course, the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism within Hinduism emphasizes this doctrine of vibration, reminding us that everything in the world is vibrating. And when we do the food offering, we're asking Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother and the others to put their vibrational energy into the food so that the food becomes conducive for our spiritual growth as well. When we sing or chant mantras like we chant Om, or when we sing the bhajans or carols, we're using that vibrational energy to enhance the spiritual space. The next principle is the principle of polarity. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Maya creates an apparent reality out of oneness, so things have to be in pairs of opposites. When you create out of oneness, you have to create in pairs. So polarity teaches that opposites are two ends of the same spectrum. Now, opposites aren't necessarily good and bad. Both poles have a purpose, and we should strive to find balance and growth in both of the poles. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows in and out. Everything has its tides. Life has its cycles, seasons, and the phases of the moons, the growth and decay of life. All of these are cycles of natures, and the pagan tradition strives to work in harmony with the rhythms of nature, as we should. We should try to stay in rhythm with the nature. We should plant the crops at the right time of year. If you're in a sailing boat, you better set your sail at the right time of year when the winds are conducive. You know, the trade routes between the Near East and India were such that you had to leave at a certain time of year, and then you had to stay in India until the wind shifted and you could go back again. Otherwise, you'd be fighting against the winds. So all of these things have a very practical purpose. And so we just have to remember that we need to work with the rhythms of life. And so when we're younger, we need to work with our energies and use our energies for good purposes. As we grow older and some of our abilities get less, we can't climb things we used to climb, and we can't do some of the things we like to do. We have to adjust and work with the rhythm of our bodily rhythms so that we can still be active and useful, but not necessarily do the same things we did when we were in our 20s or 30s. And we certainly aren't going to be doing what we did when we were 6 or 7 years old. So, the next thing is to celebrate the seasonal cycles. And we still do that. All the religious traditions do that. And for example, we are celebrating, basically in this Christmas season, we're celebrating the winter solstice. And many of the traditions that we associate with Christmas are really originally associated with winter solstice festivals, which we'll talk about towards the end here. The next is just the principle of cause and effect. Every action has a cause, and it creates a ripple, and those ripples will have future effects. So witches doing spells have to be very cautious about what kinds of spells they produce because of the kinds of ripples that they will do, and there's a great responsibility in that. And of course, there are lots of funny stories and funny tales and so forth about people that got wishes granted that turned out to not have the kind of consequences that they wanted, which was part of that plot of that Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. After he wanted it to be so that everyone could fall in love with whoever they wanted to fall in love with. Well, everyone fell in love with the wrong person. It was a total disaster. Yeah, or the people that wished for beautiful noses, you know, that kind of thing. I'm sure you've all heard that story.
Yeah.
So, you haven't heard about that? Oh, yeah, this couple got 3 wishes from a genie, and so, well, they both had kind of ugly noses they didn't like, so they said they really wished to get rid of their ugly noses. Well, then they didn't have any nose at all, so then they had to use their second wish to get noses back on their face. Well, then they ended up with a whole face full of noses. So then they had to use the third wish to get back to their original nose. None of this nonsense. All right. So, this obviously this is the law of karma, and so there's nothing really strange about that. Maya is time, space, and causation. When you're in the realm of Maya, you're in the realm of time, space, and causation, and you're stuck with that law of causation. And very similar to the principle of polarity is the principle of gender. In many languages, every noun, and sometimes even other words, have masculine and feminine genders to them. English has kind of done away with all of that, so we don't see it so much. But things are all thought to have kind of a general energy of either masculine and feminine. And it's interesting that generally we think of the masculine as active and projective and the feminine as passive and receptive. But it's interesting, in Hinduism, we have Shiva as the passive one and Shakti is the active one. So we've got that part a little bit reversed. But the important thing is not how you divide things up, but to try to work for the balance in these energies. You have to realize that there has to be one for the other to exist. All right, so now let's turn to the energy of the season at hand. So we want to be in flow with the rhythm of the season. So we're going to talk a little bit about Christmas symbolism. The winter solstice, which is usually around the 20th to the 21st of December, because of our calendar is, our year is 365 and a quarter days. As you go through from one leap year to the next, you get a little bit further off from where the solstices actually are. So that's why the solstices and the equinoxes shift from one day to the next in our calendar system. But generally it's that. And the ancients noticed that the change in the sun's position in the sky didn't change very much for about 5 days. So sometimes there was like a 5-day period where they thought of the sun as standing still. It wasn't really standing still, but it was so close to standing still, that was kind of the tradition. So some winter solstices went over for a period of 5 days. And this is a time to celebrate the return of the sun to its higher and higher position. Now our seasons tend to lag behind the return of the sun in its higher position and the days becoming longer, simply because our planet is covered with about 2/3 or 3/4 water, and these oceans are huge energy sinks. And so the sun has gotten less and less time up in the sky, so the whole oceans have been cooling off, and it takes time for them to re-warm up. And so the air above the ocean tends to stay cooler than you'd expect just from the length of the day. So our seasonal temperatures lag behind, but it is the start when the days begin to get longer and there's the potential of the spring coming and the days finally warming up. Now, Many of us have heard, and probably if we go to the malls to shop, you've heard the 12 days of Christmas playing in the speakers. This originates from numerous pagan festivals. The 12 days was common in the Middle Ages, where people actually took 12 days off. They got a holiday of 12 days. And the Christians took that over and made it 12 days of celebrating Christ's birth with masses on each day. The Council of Tours actually established those 12 days in 567. But this goes back a lot further than that. In Roman times, there was the Saturnalia festival, which started around December 17th and lasted for at least a week. And the Brumalia, which marked the winter solstice on the 21st of December, and celebrations were carried on well into January, when it ended on January 7th, which was dedicated to the god Janus, the bringer of beginnings and endings. So, we have Brahma with 4 faces facing in the 4 directions. Janus only faced 2 directions, forward and backwards. So the church, of course, tried to absorb these celebrations into Christmas celebrations in order to Christianize them and to have people feel that there was something familiar about Christianity. And so these longer days of celebration were included. And of course, during Advent, it was traditionally done by many Christians to fast during that period of Advent. And so by the time Christmas came around, they were hungry and they were ready to feast. And so they were very happy to have some overindulgence, reminiscence of a Saturnalia type festival. Christmas carols, which we just did, they were not originally Christian hymns. In fact, most of the hymns that we sing were written probably after 1700. And so it's a relatively recent phenomenon in that respect. But caroling is a very ancient tradition, and caroling was done to drive away evil spirits. Of the singing, just like we do chants to drive away evil spirits, or you might sing Ram Nam in order to free an area of negative energies. These caroling songs were done to free an area of evil spirits with their singing. And so this was taken over eventually by the Christians. Of course, this type of music wasn't even around. This kind of harmonic music was not part of any Western culture. They were still in Gregorian chants up to 1300, and then it gradually got into some polyphony in the 14 and 1500s, and more sophisticated Western music in the 1600s and 1700s and so forth. So that kind of tunes would not have been popular. Now, how about, we didn't sing it, but there's the popular carol, Deck the Halls with Boughs of Holly and so forth. And the other carol about the holly and the ivy. Where did those traditions come from? Well, these again predate Christian eras, and all around Europe, especially from Scandinavia, they would deck the halls with boughs of trees and plants that remained green in the winter. And you can see that this would have been very significant in really cold countries like Scandinavia, not quite as important in Italy and Greece, where it was probably a lot more temperate, but still some of the plants there would lose their leaves. And so they would bring these things as a semblance of life, reminding us that the winter solstice was a time when life was kind of in its seed form, but it was going to come out in potentiality from that potential form into life again in the spring to come. And so this type of decoration was done for that purpose. And the circle wreath was often done as a part of celebrating victories or honoring dignitaries, back in the Roman times even. And so this is continued to honor the arrival of Jesus in this time. So we have the victory of Jesus coming into the world, and we do the same thing now. Bringing the Christmas tree is also coming from ancient traditions that predate Christianity. Some people like to reinterpret it in Christian terms and say it's from Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden or something else like that. But in the 16th and 17th centuries, these trees were brought into, probably Germany was the origin of many of this. And they were decorated with apples or wafers, the precursors of our current golden little balls and ornaments and so forth, or maybe cookies and chocolates and things. In fact, I've seen people that do that. They will use strings of popcorn, or they'll bake gingerbread ornaments out of very stiff gingerbread that's probably not fit to eat because it's so hard. But poke holes in it and you string them up, decorate it with frosting and so forth. But this was really traced back even earlier than that, when the Vikings and the Saxons and those kinds of tribes celebrated trees as symbols of life. Again, these evergreens were symbols of everlasting life. And so they would bring either the whole tree or branches of the tree into the house. And so the Christmas tree and the Christmas wreath celebrate this kind of thing. The Christmas wreath also celebrates the cycles of life, and how the circular shape of the wreath is also an ancient symbol for protection. The holly was the symbol for the pagan king of winter. And so the holly was done that. Now the Christians reinterpreted it as perhaps the crown of thorns for Christ. This one interpretation. The ivy, interesting, was often thought of as a partner plant for it, but it was thought of as of a symbol of death and not life. But somehow, in the modern interpretation, they are put together as church wardens, accounting for the Christmas decorations from the Middle Ages onward, immortalized in that carol, the holly and the ivy. The Yule log was another ancient tradition, again symbolizing the rebirth of the sun, and to keep the fires burning inside the house until the sun reached its full warmth. So the Yule log was a symbol of sort of the internal sun. You could bring a little bit of the sun inside your house and into your hearth as the centerpiece for these winter festivals, which of course would have been the only source of heat, the life-giving heat, so that you didn't freeze to death, would be this Yule log. And so this again was a very ancient symbol. The giving of gifts also predated the three wise men bringing gifts to the Christ child. It was again, there is a Roman festival where markets set up to sell a particular kind of pottery figurines and wax candles and so forth that were made as offerings to Saturn for Saturnalia. And so these markets became a place where you would buy gifts for loved ones and patrons. And so this then was part of the thing that turned into gift giving at Christmas. Also, the earlier Christian tradition of Saint Nicholas, who was a very giving saint. I think it was Hungarian, wasn't he? Or Turkish, I think. Yeah, now that I think of it, Turkish. Yeah, modern day Turkey. He would give a lot of gifts, and so that idea also got incorporated into this idea. They used to do this separately on St. Nicholas Day, which is December 6th, but that became too many gift-giving days too close together. And so St. Nick became associated with Christmas. And Father Christmas also predates all of this. The figure of Saturn himself was a father of this time of year, the father of this winter season, as was the god Odin, who was reputed to be driven in a sleigh drawn by reindeers. And where does that sound familiar? And the tradition of leaving pies with a glass of milk for this person originated in Scandinavian, as a Scandinavian custom, making sacrifices to mark the coming of spring. There are also some female candidates for this Mother Christmas instead of Father Christmas. La Befana, the kindly Italian witch who delivered presents by broomstick, or Frau Holle, who gave women gifts at the winter solstice. Any of these pagan characters influenced the image of what has now been morphed into Father Christmas as we have today. So Christmas Day was the date of the rebirth of the sun before it was the birthday of the Son of God. And we don't really know when Jesus was born.
July
Probably
5th. July 5th.
July 5th. That is probably more likely. Yeah, if you're going to have shepherds out in their fields. But somehow it got associated with this earlier date, possibly because it was already a celebration for Mitra. And there was also an idea that Mitra spent 3 days in a cave before he was reborn after his death. So there are all sorts of similarities. And that celebration also occurred around this time. So it really doesn't matter. We don't need to feel like, well, gee, these aren't real or something, and they're not really Christian. All of these things have the same kind of energy behind them, the same kind of purpose of celebration. The birth of Christ is bringing light into the world. The birth of the winter solstice is the returning of greater light in the northern hemisphere. All of this is very northern hemisphere phobic here. We're all focused in the northern hemisphere. If these traditions had started in Australia or South Africa, they'd be different. But they didn't. Yeah.
Is Mitra the sun god?
Yes.
Mitra is part of the Zoroastrian tradition. I'm not sure they call him a
Yeah,
sun
it's
god.
the sun god.
Himself
Sun.
also,
Was he a sun god?
yeah, sun, Mitra is sun.
Okay.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter where the traditions came from. They all coalesce in a big celebration at this time of year, celebrating the increase of light. And of course, our goal is to increase our inner light along that is, again, what is outward is also inward, the microcosm and the macrocosm. So it's a time of year when we can especially work on focusing on our inner light and increasing how we can expand that inner light and then radiate that into the world with our joyous personalities. All right, we'll close with a chant and then you can offer flowers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnamada Purnamadaya Purnamudachyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. From out of Brahman floweth all that is. From Brahman all, yet is it still the same. Oh, peace, peace, peace.
I just wanted to thank Swami Atmavidyanandaji Maharaj to even coming every month, and driving all this way. And really, thank you so much for the constant, continuous. I could never do what he does. It's unbelievable. So thank you and
Nice to
have a
see you
wonderful,
all. Yeah.
wonderful holidays, Christmas. And
Sorry this is so early in the month, but You should have a head start.
And then, of course, I'm leaving tomorrow for a month, so we'll see you guys in, I'm landing back January 8th, and we'll start the schedule again after that. In the meantime, I don't know if there'll be some pujas or artis, if somebody wants to do them on a Saturday.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, you're all welcome to.
Your center.
Whoever's, yeah, if you feel like you want to do that, we can organize it. Just do some simple artis. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Great, thank you.